Welcome to another episode of BHP Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. Today I'm speaking with author Brandon Wainwright, and as he talks about his book, which is a memoir, Tyson's Gift, How an 8-Pound Canine Became a Man's Greatest Spiritual Guide. It's a wonderful book. I'm excited that Brandon has decided to be a member of the book club and share his story. So let's get right to it. Welcome our newest book club member, author Brandon Wainwright. Brandon, thank you for being a member of the book club and coming on the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kelly. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited because, I learned a little bit about your book and I think it's a great story. But before we get into all of that, I'm interested in your journey as a writer and an author. Did you always know that you wanted to be a writer?
No, not at all. Actually, I was one of those people. I was always, competent at writing, but I never considered myself to be, a great writer and had any aspirations for that. My writing experience was mostly limited to a handful of film scripts that I wrote back in the day, and of course lots of police reports, emails and things like that. But I never was really an aspiring writer until this came up, and now. But I actually really enjoyed the process of writing the book. It was very fulfilling. So there'll be more.
So tell us about the book. What genre is it?
I would say it's nonfiction memoir, and a / spiritual / metaphysical / animal lover is what I would say. It's like I said, it's a memoir. So the first half of the book is the story of Tyson's life, and so of course documents his life. It also documents our lives with him. So it's really told in a Marley and Me-esque fashion. I think it's been a while since I read that book, but I would say it's similar to that. Different personalities involved, but in that style. And then the second half of the book is after Tyson passes and the impact that all his life and, of course, losing him had on me on a spiritual level.
So you decided, you had this experience with your dog and you decided to write it. It's one thing to write it, but what made you publish it?
Well, so the reason I wrote it, okay, so I was having all these really amazing experiences, and you're gonna have to, if you can hear the dogs are in the background playing, so if you can hear them, that's what's going on. So I figured it's fitting given the context of the story. When I first decided to write it, I had it in my head that, maybe I'll go ahead and write this story because I was having so many amazing experiences that I thought it would be compelling to people and it might help them in their journey of losing their animals and the growth that they might experience. And it was just a really interesting thing. I was having experiences that you would see in, I don't know, like sci-fi movies and things, but it was for real, And so it seemed very compelling to me. But what really ultimately made me write the book was one of my spiritual teachers told me, my Reiki teacher, my first Reiki teacher told me that she believed that, she said that it was a big part of my life mission was to write this book. And that she believed it was a big deal and very important that I write the book. And so that was what made me publish it. I wrote it with the intention of publishing it from the start because the whole point was to, have an impact on people and to help people with the story. Obviously I wrote it, I got a lot of catharsis out of it because, I was reliving it, and there was a lot of really warm memories that I got to share and funny memories. And also I really got a lot of fulfillment out of memorializing Tyson's life and honoring him. But the main reason I wrote it was so other people would benefit. So my intention was always to publish it.
So you had said earlier that you were having these experiences, and so for the readers who don't know, kind of explain to them like what happened to, why Tyson is so unique. The story is so unique. So I need you to help me explain it more without necessarily giving it all away.
Okay. Well, so basically, I was one of those people, like I would say a lot of people, and especially in the West these days, where I was never able to buy into an organized religion. And so I always believed there was more, but I had tried on with numerous occasions with different religions to find truth in them, in the teachings, as a whole, not just certain elements of it. And unfortunately for me, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, I wasn't able to do that, but I still believed there was more. And I had just come to the conclusion that I was never going to know what it was. And I was okay with that. So, I mean, what are you going to do? You're never going to have all the answers. So I was fine with it until Tyson passed away. And suddenly, Tyson for me was he was a combination of a child, best friend, brother, and teacher all at once, And so when I lost him, I wasn't able, I realized within a fairly short period of time that I was really struggling with his existence. Like, is he okay? Is he where? I can't imagine such a rich soul suddenly not existing anymore, but again, I didn't have a religious paradigm to focus on. So, I ended up reading the book mostly just to give myself some peace, which is a book called Animals and the Afterlife by Kim Sheridan. She's a naturopathic doctor. And in the book, she discusses a lot of her own metaphysical experiences. She herself had a lot of psychic ability as a child and had a strong love for animals. And with her, she, after losing some of her animals, she ended up consulting with animal communicators, which are basically, for lack of a better word, they're animal mediums. So they're able to communicate on a spiritual level with animals, whether they be still incarnated or whether they've passed. And before I read this book, I would have said, "Oh, this is all a bunch of baloney," but it was really compelling, and it was told. It was autobiographical, so none of it was fiction. And in one of her, well, at least a couple of her animals, actually, she documents that they reincarnated. Okay, so I mean, obviously, here I am in the middle of this angst and grief of losing Tyson, and so the idea that I might be able to get reunited with Tyson was enough for me to be open to it. Okay, I wasn't convinced. I mean, this story, it's incredible. The book is incredible. I encourage anybody to read it. But I still wasn't convinced. I was, very skeptical, but open-minded about it. And long story short, I ended up having my own profound experiences with one particular animal communicator, where it was very clear to me that I was communicating with Tyson. Everything from descriptions of specific relationships that he had with me versus my wife versus my daughter, physical ailments that he had. And we're talking somebody that did a consult over the phone with me. I live in California. This woman, Sandy Casca, lives in Iowa. So, and it was over the phone. It wasn't by Zoom. She wasn't able to see any of my body language or anything like that. And so I was really compelled by it. It was. I still wasn't fully convinced, but I was definitely on my way. And then I won't get into any details on it, just because I don't want to take up too much time. Plus, I want people to read the book. But I ended up having more experiences that were even more profound with mediums, where it basically took away all doubt in my mind that there is life after death. That we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that for me was, I mean, like I said, I always believed that, but I felt that I had proof, and I still feel that way, Yeah, was it scientific? Was it, an actual study done? No, but I had these experiences, and I know what's what. I know what's right and what's wrong. I'm, like I said, I'm a police officer. I'm not somebody that's just going to take this willy nilly. In fact, I was very careful with myself to make sure that I wasn't just accepting it because it was emotionally easier for me. I definitely, I was open, but I wanted to truly see validity in it, and so from there, I was like, okay, well, I'm here, it's real. Now what do I do? Because I couldn't imagine that it would be something that I would learn this and then just go on with my life as normal. In fact, you can't. That's the reality. Once you have an experience like this, it changes your whole life. And so I started looking for ways to expand spiritually, and my first stop was Reiki, which is energy healing. It's a Japanese form of energy healing, and the best way to describe it is it's spiritually guided life force energy. That is, you're basically, the human becomes the conduit of this energy that comes from spirit, and it's used, to help people, whether it be healing them from physical ailments, helping them in particular situations that they're dealing with emotionally. It basically can help anything because it's spiritual energy, and we are actually, a lot of people don't like to think of it like this, or it's not that they don't like to, but it's kind of out of the conventional way of thinking. But the reality is we are in a spiritual dimension ourselves. It's a very dense one, and everything is more physical. But if you think of it in those terms, energy, we're all energy particles. We're just very dense in those energy particles. Okay, so you've got this energy that's coming in from the spiritual plane to assist us in our own plane. If you think about it in those terms, it becomes much more tangible and realistic. When I first started practicing, I was still skeptical even when I was practicing, but I've had so many profound experiences that I highlight in the book and document that I'm no longer a skeptic. It's proven itself to me. So that kind of gives you a little taste of some of the experiences that I've had, and I continue to grow in it, and it's definitely an ongoing thing. My goal is to inspire others to go on their own journey, because it's one of those things where I read Animals and the Afterlife, and it's an amazing book with incredible stories in it. And I still was totally skeptical, even though this person was talking about it, from the first person and giving her own depiction of what she experienced. But you're not going to believe it until you experience it for yourself, which is what I found, and I went off and did that. So what I'm hoping is that my book will in turn inspire others, just like Animals and the Afterlife did for me, to go on their own journey. And then also, of course, it's there to entertain, because the stories of Tyson are entertaining in and of themselves. And also to help people, just with the grieving process. When you lose an animal, it's such for me personally, it was more painful and profound than any other loss I'd had in my life to that point. At least as far as losing a loved one to death, it was definitely the most significant experience I had had. Even, other family members, and it was different. When you get with an animal, it's they're an innocent, and they're like a child, and it's a whole different. And I know any animal lover can relate to what I'm talking about here.
Well, the thing about animals, especially dogs, is they love you no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Their love is truly unconditional. They do not judge. They love you no matter what. You can be the worst person and come home to your dog who loves you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's
Absolutely.
the thing about animals and the bond that you can create with animals. Do you think, Brandon, if you wouldn't have lost Tyson, that you would have still had this spiritual journey?
No. Mm-mm. Well, I don't think I would have had the journey if I hadn't had Tyson in my life. I mean, when he came into my life, and this is also documented in the book, but he really opened my heart up in ways where it had been shut down. He came into my life when I was in my early 30s, and I had a lot of experiences as a child involving animals and divorced parents and stuff like that that caused me to close my heart down, not even realize it. And when he came into my life, he opened it up, and the love that I was able to suddenly pour out was so profound, to this dog. And the thing is, he made me earn it. It wasn't as simple as just, oh, you love me unconditionally. No, this dog made me earn it. And he was a very rich soul. He seemed human, to be honest with you. And so, yeah, I think it was the combination of my relationship with him and having it was such a significant, powerful relationship. And then the loss, I don't think there is another dog that could have pulled it off, to be honest with you.
Now, when you lost him, I mean, did you lose him suddenly, or did he, did he pass because he was just an old dog?
Well, he was 14. He died from a brain tumor, a benign brain tumor, but it, physically it encroached on his nerves. It caused seizures, and so it really wasn't sudden, because the seizures started about a year before he passed away, and we had it handled with medication for a period of time, and then they progressively got worse at the end. So we knew our time was short, but at the same time, it was one of those things where we pretty much had him act, normal. He had a pretty good level of normalcy. At least from what you could observe in him. So it still was, we were hoping for a little more time when he left us, but it wasn't like it was all of a sudden like he got hit by a car or some crazy thing like that, where it just sideswiped you.
Right. So you've got this book out there. Are you looking to maybe write another book?
Yes. It's one of those things where there's material that's developing, and it's an ongoing process. I'm not going to write it until I have enough of the material to actually go forward with it. So in other words, I'm going to document the actual experiences that I'm going through in my life, spiritually specifically, but of course all that intersects real life and real life issues and things like that. But Tyson will play a big role in the sequel as well. In fact, I already have I've got a title for it, and it's gonna be called Tyson's Gift Book 2 with a Little Pepper.
Gotcha. And so do you now consider yourself to be a writer?
Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing. Yeah. I am by definition, I am one. But it's not how I make my living. And so I'm more focused on writing stuff that's actually going to be compelling. I'm not going to write just to get an audience, and you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to put stuff out there just to get a following. I'm only going to write stuff when I actually have something to say. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. So are you thinking that you're going to put the second book out there? They're both nonfiction. They're memoirs. Would you say that's the genre where you feel comfortable? Do you think you could ever write anything fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I know I can. I mean, I've written movie scripts that were fiction, but the thing is, my taste and I have a tendency. I like to write comedy, and it's a lot of it's dark comedy, and it's an acquired taste. So it's one of those things where I probably will be more of a nonfiction writer, just because but you never know. If I get enough of a following, As a nonfiction writer, I may put something out there just because I have a following people, but I guarantee you there's only going to be a small percentage of the population that's going to like it. That's what it's been throughout my life. I've made a number of movies and written scripts, and there's always a handful of people that find them hilarious, but then the vast majority of people don't. So, but they just think, there's another one of Brandon's stupid stories.
Well, Brandon, I appreciate you. I think it's great that you've written the book. The book is called, again, Tyson's Gift: How an 8-Pound Canine Became a Man's Greatest Spiritual Guide. I think it's great that your dog put you on a spiritual journey. And there's nothing probably more profound than having that connection, having that spiritual connection. Like you said, it will literally change your life. However it comes to you, it will change your life.
I agree with you 100%. And, the thing is, a lot of people, less so now, especially in our country, but a lot of people kind of disregard animals. They don't, the significance of them and how powerful their spirits actually are. Animals also are spiritual beings having an earthly experience. Their connection to us and the role they play it's different, but it's not necessarily any less important and profound, and all animals have a different role to play, of course, just like all humans do. But I agree with you. I think if most people, if they're honest and they really open their hearts up, I think they find that they also that lots of people have animals that had just as big of an impact on them as Tyson did on me, and that's the other thing that I hope people will get from the story is that, don't disregard it. Don't downplay the love that you have for your animal. Don't downplay the significance of losing them. Don't just be like, oh, it's just a dog, and I think unless that's how you feel, but I think if you're honest, you need to give it its just due. Let the richness of that relationship grow your soul, because that's what it's there for. And I hope that this story will inspire people to think it's okay to do that. If a cop like me can do it, then anybody can do it.
Fantastic. Where is the book available? Is it only on Amazon?
That's the main place it is. You can get there either Amazon.com, or you can go to tysonsgift.com, tysonsgift.com. There's a button there you can click, and it'll take you right to the Amazon page, and you can also contact me there. It's also on barnesandnoble.com, and if you Google it, it'll come up with a bunch of smaller stores and things that you can get it at. But Amazon's the main one.
Fantastic. Brandon, thank you so much for being the newest member to our book club and coming on the podcast and sharing your story. Again, the book is called Tyson's Gift: How an 8-Pound Canine Became a Man's Greatest Spiritual Guide. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you.
Thank you. It's an honor. It's an honor to be here. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of BHP Book Club. I have been your host, Kelly Morgan. I just wrapped up with author Brandon Wainwright as we talked about his book, Tyson's Gift: How an 8-Pound Canine Became a Man's Greatest Spiritual Guide. It's a wonderful book available on Amazon, and as Brandon said, you can head over to tysonsgift.com and get a copy there. If you are an author and you would like to be a member of the book club, be on the podcast, and promote your book, then just head over to www.brightheadedpublishing.com, go to the contact section, and drop me a note. I'll make sure that you will be a member of our book club and have the opportunity to talk all about your wonderful book. Next week, we have another author, but until then, keep writing.